Do you know what I like to do when I wake up in the morning with things on my mind? I like to look at some baseball cards. So I got these computer glasses. They're supposed to be, to protect your eyes from the light. I noticed when I first started to lose a little bit of my vision, because I always had perfect vision, was when I would stare at my computer screen a lot. I would stare at stocks. I like to trade stocks. I would stare at charts and prices all day long. And I would get that look, that feeling like you looked into the sun and you would get, like you could see spots when you look into the sun. It hurts your eyes. And that's when I first started noticing how hard it was on my eyesight. And now on the phone, always looking at YouTube or comments or stocks on there. And it seems to be with Apple products. But it's really hard on my eyes. I would wake up in the morning and my eyesight's fine. And the longer that I look at a screen or computer screen, phone screen throughout the day, I get those tired eyes. So I got these things, and they're like big monstrosities. And my daughter tells me that I look like Austin Powers in them. We'll see if they work. So I woke up with some things on my mind and some conversations I've been having with other fellow YouTubers. We have some text conversations going on. And it started. I did a live with on Adam's Splendid Sports Cards channel with Double D Vintage, Dylan, Greg, Midlife Crisis Cards, and Theo, Clemente Collector. And Greg from Midlife Crisis Cards had brought up the fact that I'm a Frankenstein collector. And I don't know, for whatever reason, when people say that to me, I find the need to defend it like it's like an insult. I kind of take it as an insult, and I know it's probably not intended that way. It's no big deal. But it's something I hear people use that term, and I think the first time I ever heard it, it was Mike Baseball Collector. Because he was always fanatical about having to have everything in PSA slabs. And I know there are a lot of people like that, especially the ones, in the set registry. I think that created a lot of things. But, when you call something Frankenstein, I don't think, it certainly doesn't sound like a compliment. If you don't believe me, tell your wife or your girlfriend she looks like Frankenstein. And I understand the terminology because Frankenstein was made up of different parts. But Frankenstein was also ugly. So I am a Frankenstein collector, and this will be the only time I ever use that term again. So when I put my sets together, I might have SGC, I might have PSA, I might have Beckett, and I might have just the regular old card with no slab. And so this is considered a Frankenstein collection. Now what's funny is that in my life I am an obsessive compulsive. If I have a little scratch on my car, it bothers me the entire time I own the car. My friends used to joke around. I remember one time when I first moved into my one home in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, I had a bunch of friends come to town, and I was out at the store or something when they arrived, and I came home, and they were in my house, and I walked in the front door, and as I was going down the hallway to where they were, I had subconsciously turned a picture frame slightly when I walked in the door. Didn't think anything of it. Didn't even realize I was doing it. And they all bust out laughing because they know that I'm an obsessive compulsive. And they came in, and my one friend, God rest his soul, he just passed recently, but he had just turned it slightly just to mess with me and to see if I would notice. And when I walked in, I subconsciously moved it back because I did notice. So I am like that in my personal life. If I have a card and there's something on it that bothers me, I have to get a new one. It just bothers me and I can't deal with it. If it's in a holder that bothers me, I need to change it out. When I went to the National, I haven't graded cards in many years. When you see me show graded cards, 99% of them, I got that way. So when I went to the National, I brought a bunch of cards with me, and I didn't bring cards to grade. I brought them for reholders, because they were, PSA will do that stupid thing, like with Colgan's chip in a baggie, where it turns around and it flops around and it goes up and down, and it drives me crazy. And that's why I always preferred SGC cards, because I collect a lot of different sized cards that many of you will call oddball. Of course, I don't use that term, but cards with different sizes. SGC always did a much better job of having that black insert and making sure that card fit in there. One of the things that always drove me crazy about PSA, because of my obsessive compulsiveness of a card in a baggie, or a way too big slab, because they don't have the right slab, so they just put this one card in a big slab and it's flopping around or turning around. Drives me insane. If you've ever collected the 1950 micro gumball cards, for instance, orange backs, they'll just turn the whole way around. And the same with a lot of the old Colgan's chips and other issues. So I am obsessive compulsive in that way. However, when it comes to buying cards, it doesn't bother me. And I think the reason is, when most collectors, when they look at cards, the first thing they look at is the slab. And I would say the very first thing they look at is the grade. And that's what I don't like about grading. Because I always say we collect slabs now and not cards. Because what your eye is drawn to is the grade. And anything less than 10 is junk, because we grade on a scale of 1 to 10. When you guys look at these, you might see a Frankenstein collection. But when I look at them, I don't notice anything but the cards. I'm not looking at the labels. I seek out the best card available at the time for the best price. The best card. And if that comes, what you people call raw, if it comes in a Beckett, if it comes in a PSA, if it comes in an SGC, that's the one I buy. Now, I could always swap them out later if I want. If I want to give PSA all my retirement money instead of having it to enjoy myself, I can reslab my 100,000 cards if I want to. But that's just it. With me, it is all about the card. It's not about the slab. And so I do take exception to the term Frankenstein collection. And I know that'll draw controversy, but I'm not afraid to speak my mind, and so be it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I do. Now, another subject that I got into last night with some guys, same group of guys, is we were talking about sun fading of cards. And how we started on this topic is I had stumbled upon a Kellogg's card. And it was in a PSA slab with all kind of cracks. And in the past, I've seen PSA 10 Kellogg's cards with cracks. Now, here's the thing. I don't believe PSA graded them that way. I believe that they cracked after they slabbed them. And here's the thing. I've been collecting Kellogg's cards since I was a little kid, pulling them out of the cereal boxes. I have nearly every Kellogg's card ever made. With the exception, I still need a number of the 1971s in both baseball and football. when Kellogg's cards, when you have them, they will curl. And anybody that's collected them and had a pile of them, you'll notice that they curl. Now, us seasoned collectors know that you cannot just flatten those things out really quickly and flat and with a hard, steady holder or something, because they will crack. You have to gently allow them to flatten out over time. And so grading your Kellogg's cards and sending them to PSA with some young guy just, slabbing those up and immediately unflattening them, there's a good chance they will crack. What I like to do for those, and for those of you who collect them, is I like to use semi-rigids. Now, I have a 100% success rate at my Kellogg's cards not cracking. Any ones that I have cracked, I bought that way. This is one of them. This has a little crack through there. I had bought this card number of years ago, and this 71 set's just tough to find. And I found this at a really great price, and I wanted it for my set. So this has a little crack through there. But when I get those ones that curl up, I will put them in semi-rigids only, because semi-rigids have a little give to them. They're not super, super smashy. And what that does is, as you store them, it allows them to straighten out over time. You're not just taking a curled card and smashing it down like this. So when you see cracked Kellogg's and PSA holders, they in all likelihood, I have to believe they all cracked after they were slabbed, which shows you that slabbing a card can actually be dangerous to the card. Don't know if you're aware of this, but the Baseball Hall of Fame, for their card museum, won't accept slabbed cards. They don't want graded cards because they don't know the long-term effects of them being in card holders. Now, I know when you buy magnetic holders and other holders, they come with like a 5-year UV protection. And I want to get back into the sun fading in a minute. But do PSA, SGC, do these slabs come with that UV protection? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so. I do know that if you can call China where they manufacture their slabs, any of these slabs, and you could talk them into believing that you work for one of these companies, they'll send you their slabs. These things are probably made for 3 cents a piece over in China. But do they truly protect the cards? And that brings me to some sun fading. If you have a card and you store it where there is a window and light comes in, they will definitely fade. They will definitely fade whether they're in a, if the sun is intense, I don't think that UV protection is even going to protect them, but they'll definitely fade in slabs. Now, it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you get some sun fading on that card and it's a PSA 9 and you send it in for a re-slab, it'll still get the PSA 9 even though it's no longer a PSA 9. And I brought up the fact on our live on Splendid Sports Cards channel that when AI comes along, we're going to have to regrade all our cards, because you look at the junk slab era we created, where people were like, I'm not paying you that. That's an old slab. That's junk. I want it in a new slab because they grade tougher now. So you have to pay to re-slab all your cards if you want to get top dollar. And anybody that sells cards knows what I'm saying is true. So when AI comes out, then what will happen? Well, now all the tens of thousands of dollars you're paying to grade your cards, you'll be like, oh, those are old slabs. So Adam, what he responded was that PSA will always stand behind their old grades, no matter what, even if AI comes out, because it would ruin them. Well, if that's true, that means they are sticking behind bad grades that might no longer exist. just like sun fading of a card. Now, I've never done this, and I don't know anybody that did this, but if you have a cracked Kellogg's in a 7 or an 8 or a 9, and you send it back to PSA, will they re-slab it with the same grade? I don't know, but clearly if it has a crack, it's not a 7, it's definitely not an 8, and it's definitely not a 9. So, it brings me to another thing. I know when you send your cards in, there are chances. Well, I know that sometimes they'll damage the card. I know that because I've seen people, say it. One of my pet peeves is sometimes, and I have this one here as an example. I have this super rare Jimmy Fox Warch cigar. And if you look here, they created a dog ear when they slabbed it. They ruined the card. Not ruined. I'm thrilled to have it. But nobody, if you were going to put this in a Card Saver 4, would you put it in there with a dog ear? Or would you? I don't know. For me, I'd probably straighten it out before I put it in there. And it's my guess that they did that while they were slabbing it, because who in their right mind would slab it like that? Brings me to some other things. Let's talk about Milk Duds, the 71 Milk Dud set. So this would be a Milk Duds box with the card. Now, when they slab it, they alter the box. This isn't how the box looks. This is how the box looks. So I would never send this in for grading because they will alter it. Just had a few things on my mind. Be interested in your thoughts and comments. I certainly understand, me of all people, the need for consistency, for all your cards to be in the same holders or slabs. For me, it's about the cards. And I always say that my greatest joy in card collecting is curating my collection. And I find that some cards look better in an SGC holder. Some cards look better in a PSA holder. Some cards look better in another type of holder that's not in a slab. So for me, that's a way that I collect them. And I focus on the card. When I look through my cards, I'm looking at the cards. I'm looking at the cards. And growing up, that's all I focused on, was the card image. I never focused so much on the corners and critiquing it a lot. And so when I got older and certainly more sophisticated in my collecting and got a light and got a magnifying glass and started looking at cards from my childhood, I had cards that weren't perfectly centered, and now I'm a centering junkie. And I had lots of cards that I just loved, and I would look at the image and I never noticed that maybe, it had a little bit of a rounded corner, or, they weren't perfect. I never noticed that because I just look at the card. And so when I look at these, I'm seeing Rod Carew, I'm seeing Pete Rose, I'm seeing Joe Morgan, I'm seeing a George Brett rookie card. I'm not seeing the slab and the grade. And everybody says, well, I don't care. I don't care what the grade is. I just want it slabbed up. And I don't understand. If you don't care about the grade, if you truly don't care about what grade is assigned, then why are you spending tens of thousands of dollars to have them graded? Isn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose of grading? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. The one thing that I don't like about grading is on a scale of 1 to 10, anything less than 10 is junk. Because now it's substandard. It's substandard. And and I'm sure you experienced this, you'll get a beautiful 7, and then you'll see a video, somebody has an 8, and you're like, oh, that's nicer than mine. Mine's only a 7. Or, and this is a pet peeve of mine, when you know, somebody will be so excited to get a card, and they'll post it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and then people come along and they're like, oh, this is mine, and they show theirs in a higher grade just to almost put you down or you know, outdo you. It's like, can't you just let the guy enjoy his card? Do you have to show him that you have 1 or 2 or 3 grades higher? You know, because to me, cards can look fantastic in lower grade, and that's the part that I agree with. However, you know, when you look at a holder, especially an SGC holder, which I love SGC holders, what's the most prominent thing on the card if you don't focus on the card? The first thing you're seeing is the giant 8. And if you have a beautiful card and it's a giant 1, I don't care how much you love that card, it doesn't feel good to have a 1 on it for whatever reason, whether it's a misgrade or, you know, whatever. Like for me, I like to collect stamped backs, and it's a little niche in the hobby where kids in the old days, the old tobacco cards and stuff, would either put a stamp or write their initial. And what's fascinating is to try to reunite those cards. And I reunited 2. I reunited a Cap Anson and a Jack Glasscock from the 1800s that had the same stamp, a guy from New York City. And it's so much fun to try to reunite somebody's collection from back in the day. But those cards will always get a 1.5 or a 1 because they either have writing on them or a stamp on them. And so, you know, it's no fun to have them graded because they come back with shit grades. Even though to somebody like me, they're extra special. They're not less special. So, you know, I think for a lot of us, grading is a love-hate relationship. And Mike Baseball Collector, you know, he'll talk about how he'll come on and bitch about PSA, and he'll say, hey, I get it. I bitch about them, and then I turn around and use them. I have to send cards back in for reslabs. They screwed me. They did this. They did that. I get it. But he used the analogy, it's like a marriage, right? Not every day is wonderful, and you have to work through the problems. I ain't married to PSA. See, he says it's like a good marriage. I say it's like an abusive marriage. Oh, well, you don't know what he's like when he's not beating me. See, PSA makes so many mistakes. I see so many mistakes, and everybody gives them a pass after a pass after a pass. Oh, well, I had to send it back in, and they did this. And, you know, here's the thing. I don't know anybody, like you talk to Jake, Legends Never Die. I don't know anybody that collects raw cards that their day's ever ruined. But I see so many videos where their day is ruined when they get that card back from PSA and they can't figure out why it got a 3 when they were expecting an 8. It ruins people's days more than it makes them. Are you ever surprised and get a 10? No. If you get a 10, you're expecting it or hoping for it. But I see a lot of times grading ruins people's day. And so I just don't engage in that. Because for me, it's about the cards. That's what it's about. And I know, and I hope not, but, you know, this is all in good fun. It's just, hey, it's just the way I feel. We all have feelings. We all have opinions. It's just the way that I feel about things. Doesn't make me right. Doesn't make me wrong. Doesn't mean that there aren't 28 different opinions on the subject. But I am curious to hear about your experiences, your thoughts on any of the topics that I broached. You know, I love the interaction with the community, and I learn so much. And oftentimes, my mind is changed, or I look at something from a different angle I never considered before. And if you're open-minded, then that's the way it can be, right? I don't like our card discussions to be them versus us. And I don't like them to be like politics. You know, if you look at political pundits, or I hate to even broach the subject of politics, but if you have a Republican pundit, then every Democrat is a corrupt, horrible person. Every Democratic ideas are stupid and terrible. And then if you have a Democratic pundit, every Republican is a corrupt guy or woman. Every Republican idea is a terrible idea. They're all bad people. All Democrats are perfect. All Democratic policies are wonderful. You know, if you're going to be like that, that's very closed-minded. I call that you're brainwashed. If you can't see good and bad, and then you're not middle of the road, you're brainwashed. And I think when no matter what PSA does, no matter what they do, that you never see any bad in them. They're perfect, they're wonderful, and that's the only thing that should control the hobby is PSA prices. You know, PSA slabs are going to sell for more because that's just the way it is. That's the way that they have created it. But are you truly being open? Or are you being that political pundit? Where everything other than that is junk, horrible, and they're only good. Give them a pass. Interested in your thoughts. If you're still here, thanks for listening.